to you last time, and it's probably going to be a while for you, but for me it was just a few minutes ago, last episode, with the question of who's pursuing and whether the Brits are following. Well, I did some die rolls, and I think what I've come up with the pursuit, I haven't decided yet over here. Now, historically what happened was Wellington didn't pull out until 7:30 in the morning. That's about when he found out that Ligny had fallen, had been a defeat. I think this defeat and routing, cutting across his field, etc., is pretty clear to him that it's been there's a major wedge between the two armies, if nothing else, and that Waterloo itself is threatened. So I'm going to make it fairly likely, but I don't think absolutely obvious. I think I'm going to give a 1 in 4 chance over there. I'm sorry, a 4 out of 6 chance. For the French, I gave a 1 out of 6 to everyone except D'Erlon. And we have something, well, actually I gave it to everyone, but I've decided D'Erlon's going to go for one reason. Because Grouchy is the only one who succeeded. Now, D'Erlon got a 2, so I'm going to allow him to move forward with Grouchy on the pursuit. Now, Grouchy has just gotten orders from Napoleon to pursue, and he's fairly close to D'Erlon. They both have the same axis of advance. Mouton and Gerard are going to stop. I'm assuming Vandamme is going to stop here because he's just moving on to Carabras, and probably can wait until morning to do that, right? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, but that's my personal view, is that I don't see any great urgency with the guard being down there, etc. The Brits aren't going to attack, and so I'll take care of that. Let's make the British roll too. That way I don't have to come back until after they've moved. So 4 out of 6, they just leave because they have to get the jump. They can't chance this. Now, what they don't know is VlE. VlE is going to be showing up there, but that doesn't happen until I think 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. it looks like. VlE shows up. So it's quite possible he'll be showing up to French troops there. So this could be over if this roll doesn't happen. And the Brits are going to withdraw as well. So we're okay. So the French have completed their side of the first night turn. And, you know, I'm moving around doing some recovery work to roll to make sure strength points are getting back. Even D'Erlon and Grouchy are doing this for the first turn. Grouchy's orders don't come into effect until next turn. D'Erlon, conceivably D'Erlon has orders to pursue, but there's nothing to pursue anymore. You know, so he's kind of in an off position. Elsewhere, I'm doing what recovery I can, and of course the leaders are very good at pulling back the stragglers, putting guns back together, whatever's involved in that, raising horses from the dead, because they can do it on every single type of unit. I'm not sure that the overnight works on anything but infantry. I think it does. And it does make sense. I mean, you know, there are repairs that can be done to some of the artillery pieces, and gunners and such not are showing up. Horses are being gathered up. There are reasonable arguments. It may be an oversimplification the way it's handled, but it works fine. But now comes the problem with the Brits. Now, whether or not they turn in March, who cares? We can figure that out. But what we can't figure out is this line of reinforcements. Most of it, there's 2 units that come from Nivelles. Most of it is marching from Waterloo, essentially, to Carabras. Now, what I have to do is figure out how to reverse that chain. And some of it's probably already on the Waterloo map. And just start setting up and operating from that standpoint. The other 2 units from Nivelles I have to think about, because the question is, can I delay them, 4 hours or something, move them over to Waterloo map, or are they going to be a threat? Are they going to be coming in this direction where basically the French probably have to leave a screening force in place? I'd rather just have everything over on the main map so that I can get rid of these maps and start playing on less. Thought I wasn't going to have to talk a lot, but there are some complexities here, in trying to fit this together. And there's no rules to handle this situation. You really kind of have to wing it, like many of the things in the hooking the scenarios together. There's not, like a lot in this game, honestly, the whole system. Now, I sound kind of disgusted by that, but I'm not. I don't mind it. It's just, I know a lot of people would really be like, well, gosh, it's not really, there's no way to actually link them together. Well, it gives you a good pointer and you can do it, It's like the rules to the game. If you want to use the optional rules, don't expect to have everything spelled out for you. You're going to have to make some decisions on your own and, configure the game as you like it. Partially inaccurate solution. These are the units that, in reverse order, were coming in here. These guys were due to come in this turn, I think. I'm not sure. But essentially, they're going to be an hour late. They turned around, say, at night or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, and maybe I'll screw up and end up moving them. These forces are going to be allowed to deploy on the Waterloo map. It's not too unreasonable because they're moving. There's no question that they're moving. Stupid Mockingbird. At this point. The only real issue is, where are they? Some of them may already be deep on the Waterloo map, and we'll try to figure that out. These guys are obviously going to have to withdraw. 2 remaining units are over here at Nivelle. Like I said, I don't think I want to try to handle a rear guard coming in there, although that is the best road. This is the crossroads. So my choices are basically to try to bring them in here as a threat to the Prussians, to the French, which would end up being screened and probably have no effect on the battle, or swing them around this way, which is probably what I'm going to do. And swinging them around that way, they come at 8 a.m. on the Quatre Bras map. It takes 2 hours to transit between the 2 maps normally. This picture is wrong. It shows like 2 routes out of Quatre Bras. There aren't. Well, maybe this is indicating some kind of swing over to here or something. In which case, if that's the case, that's what I'll charge them. I'll charge them the full cost. So an extra 3 to 4 hours. So they're going to be coming at 11 or noon. And I'll bring them in as a column and get here later, at the end of the morning on the 17th. We don't know when this battle is going to start because the French haven't got any orders to get there. So it's going to take them a while to get there too. So it's probably fine. Now, where did I put Hill? I put Hill coming in around 10 a.m. He'll be coming on over there. What are these? These are the units. Aha. This may be what's coming in right now. Ometa, maybe? Yeah, these are the guys who are coming on right now. So these guys, I put them over here because they're going to be a reinforcement. I'll keep them near Hill. They're going to be coming in the latest. Like they're right here. So these guys are actually not off. They're just off the Waterloo map. So they're all going to move, as I mentioned. So that's the one unit I wasn't sure what to do with. They've essentially made most of the trip back. Because the thing is, a night turn is like 3 hours. So the next unit that was due to come is coming in on the next turn, which means it hasn't even left the Waterloo map, according to what's going on. I'm not quite doing that, but you know, these guys may be stretched out along this road. Who knows where? They may be sleeping part of the night. I don't know. But this is the best way I can think of handling it. So anyway, that's what I'm doing, I guess. I cleared the Waterloo map a little bit. I see this is to Charleroi, which is this road. So the Neville Road actually kind of links up somewhere off map there. So I would assume that either of these is the longer route over to Waterloo, and that's what I'm going to add for that unit. So we've changed things a little bit and figuring out where the Brits are going to set themselves up. So we move into the 17th on the French side of the turn. I accidentally moved these units forward. I threw them back more or less where they were. I'm not worried too much about exact placement. It's not going to make much difference with the amount of time needed to cross the Wavre. But those were supposed to be remaining static. Grouchy and Darlon are beginning to make their way off the map. Grouchy, I think, is completely off, except I can't find one of his cav. I don't know where it went to. It may be in the dead pile and not marked off. I've found zombie units that are marked off that I left on the board. Probably a matter of me not being able to read these little tiny numbers here correctly. Sometimes the wrong unit gets allocated the hits. And that's a problem with using sheets like this to allocate hits on if it's impossible for the players to read the little numbers. With good eyesight, you can see them. With my eyesight, until I get my progressive lenses, which I should be able to do today or tomorrow or something, then, well, it's tough. You know, and my eyes aren't that bad. It's just these little tiny numbers, man, I can't see them. Especially when it gets kind of dark out. My eyes get worse. But anyway, we have those coming off, and I've got them marked here. They're going to come in just slightly before VlE does. And I don't know where they're going to hit. We'll see what happens over here on Wavre. They may end up just colliding early in the morning in a little battle. That probably won't go too well for Grouchy. Cav hitting an infantry corps without any support doesn't sound good, although this is Napoleonic Cav, so who knows? And then, of course, just resting here. We'll get the Brits are going to continue their withdrawal. I've started. These are the units coming back on the board, I think. It's really complicated. I'm trying to record things over here, but I'm pretty sure I don't have everything. Those guys I haven't figured out, you know, how to record yet. So we'll get to it all. It's just the complexity of trying to, you know, deal with the situation as it's unfolding. And there's no way you could have this written into the rules, right? Because it is based on the situation. British side of the turn, they're disengaging Wellington's reserve, but Uxbridge, because of disorder, and same really for Orange's forces, aren't really pulling out, and this could be a problem for them. Maybe I would have been better off abandoning units. I expect... See, Orange has an interesting case, because they've spent 2 turns trying to reorganize, and now, if they spend another turn, they get a strength point back on each of their units that still exists that's lost a strength point. Of course, I can get those strength points back if I move quickly enough. I don't think the 4 or 5 strength points is worth sticking around here and facing a possible French attack in the morning. So I think I'm getting out, but we're not sure yet. One question that comes to mind with the fatigue rules, and it's obviously not covered in the core game, which doesn't worry about this, and since it's an option, it's not really covered in scenarios at all, is, hey, I got a bunch of units that are marching around off map somewhere. Which ones get fatigued, which don't? I'm charging fatigue against the guys who were on the map, but theoretically, VlE is not in best of shape while he's marching. And the same thing goes for the troops that were moving on to here or moving on to the French map, from the French side onto Ligny. there should be a fatigue rating for how far and how hard they've been marching assigned to each unit as it enters the game. And of course, because fatigue is an optional rule, there's no support for it. You know, there's limited support for some optional rules. Basically, it's based on whatever the designer thinks are the options that he wants to play with for that scenario on the day that he put, you know, the set of rules together, is what you may have support for. That may mean that the scenario essentially doesn't quite work right without the particular vision that he has for any given version of this scenario. There's somewhere, you know, specifically will say, hey, you want to be playing with the level 2 command rules on this. And I'm like, no, bullshit. I'm playing with the command rules I want to play. I'll figure it out. But you are quite often patching things together, and it's not always consistent. Sometimes it's the base game, sometimes it's the level 2. It's never assuming the most. So, like, you will never see support for, like, the fatigue rules, especially in some of the older games. I don't know if this game has the fatigue rules, honestly. I think they all did. Maybe I'm mistaken. Let's see. Yeah, fatigue is in here. That's kind of a prettier formatting, even though it's harder to read, perhaps. Anyway, onward with the French for the last of the nighttime turns. 6 a.m., daylight beginning. I don't know if anything's coming on that... Hey, these guys I'm handling, those are all the ones that have filed back onto here. 8 a.m. is when... 7:30 is when stuff starts happening here and starts coming in again here. We've got a small pile left. This is the English line at Waterloo. Well, at Place Noire. And this is going to be a problem because the French are going to be coming on not far from the edge of the map. They get knocked back. Hey, they're gone. The linkage doesn't work terribly well for the simple fact that there's some nice terrain here. There's also nice terrain in between here. And that's always one of the problems in, you know, if you're trying to represent something with jump maps and stuff. Man, what's going on in the middle? It's kind of like the problem of when you're playing an operational or a strategic game and then it somehow translates into a tactical battlefield. Or some of the tactical games like CWB has a split map game, the Embrace a Foul Wind or whatever. So, yeah, there's going to be some trickiness. But one of the big problems with this particular system is the rigid rules about any disordered units getting knocked back off the map. Boom, they're gone, you know. Of course, it's not that terrible a thing. For one example, for one case in point, oops, I forgot to rally this, is that I'm not accounting for whatever the French have to leave behind here. Now, they've rallied most of their forces. They have a almost complete army at this point. Well, I mean, Second Corps is not in good shape, but everything else is in shockingly good shape. Even Van Damme, except for the unit that got knocked out, he was able to start moving at night because he's in such good shape he didn't need the recovery turn. On the other, this guy, did he have a roll? I don't think he got a chance. He did not. Should something back there. Okay. All the units recover at the end of the night. Now, I don't know if they fail a recovery and withdraw 2 hexes, if that spoils their chance of recovering. I don't want to think too hard about that because I wouldn't be rolling if that was the case. Over here, the guard has recovered most. Harel is not in good shape. There's no question there. But what he's facing is kind of problematic, which is Orange is beginning to withdraw here, but he's kind of exposed. And if what's going to happen is basically, if the French get an initiative roll, they might go slamming into the tail of that and breaking that up. And it could just be that this is just, you know, totally Napoleon's fantasy situation. I mean, these Brits are not going to stand there, and if the Orange troops get destroyed, and you know, then our goal is kind of to try to get off the map and go look for the Austrian army. That may be our best option at this point, anyhow. But anyway. 6 a.m. Everything's on the move now. Mouton and Gerard heading down to Wavre. Well, not quite everything. Ney's original command, he's just gone and given orders to Grel, and Drew is holding off. We sent some orders to Kellerman. And then we have Van Damme coming forward. I have some interesting issues to consider here. So I see the entire English force moving off this way. And I know enough about the terrain, etc. And should know that what I'm facing in terms of if I come on the map, which means I could go for a more expensive in terms of time outflank over to Nivelles. Or towards Nivelles. How reasonable is that? Well, I don't know. You know, I could send like one of my corps that way. I didn't even roll for initiative to try to wipe out those couple units. I don't think that's going to be a big deal, and I think the fatigue factors and stuff like that is actually a bigger issue. So I'd rather just get moving. And Napoleon himself was pretty damn lackadaisical about this once the battle actually started, hence some of the issues that arose were because he wasn't really seeming to be terribly motivated about the whole thing. And then later on he's getting up, you know, he's taking a nap and then getting up at near noon, having lunch and everything, and not really pressing the way that you'd expect. And oh boy, we got somebody who should be looking for his command. All right, I got my new progressive lenses and I can't see that. I wouldn't expect to. That's 087. I have some trouble sort of acclimatizing towards them. So that's going to be Gerard. So we're going to head down and chase him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess. Or we'll just go up the hill. So one of the reasons why you can go with the simple line of sight in a lot of ways is these are all fairly gentle slopes. I still say that there's places, high points, which might affect things a little differently than the simplified line of sight really does. But, you know, I find it easier than some games that tried too hard to get line of sight right and then really kind of blow it. Coming to mind there was what I could see of game from the Hammer and Sickles series or whatever that I played recently. I don't remember what it was. It's Cedar Mountain, but I don't remember what the clever little name was for it. All right, we get another mostly on paper turn, and there's not a lot to say. Mouton here had to give Gerard passage on the road. We could kind of try to fight our way through, but it's just easier to let one corps pass as a whole instead of interspersing them. The English are in more of a hurry, so they're kind of doing that, where we have Wellington and Orange's forces combining. The French, no movement forward. Now, I'm doing something a little weird here. I've decided to give Ney command of a flanking force that's going to be coming up this way. He's got an independent command because he had one here, and that's going to be Rail and Kellerman. Pretty much the command he had for Cadabra. I figure that'll disrupt things the least. And meanwhile, and I had some iffy things where, you know, I had Ney personally giving orders, but instead, if I had sent an aide, it would have worked just as well. So I rolled for it as if it was an aide there. because of that. And then Napoleon is going to lead the Guard and Van Damme. And he's given the orders to Van Damme. He hasn't given the orders to the Guard yet. And I should be sending those because I'm unable to go marching off. This gives the Guard a little bit of time to relax because, as you can see, it needed it. It also gives me a chance to recuperate units longer. I figure the French actually, did delay a fair amount in their pursuits, in their attack on Waterloo, etc. So, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, and it was on my mind for a while. Every army has its own name for what we call Waterloo. This is important because, if you're looking at a game for it, there are several different choices of names that'll be about it. The English, I don't know if the Dutch have their own name for it, but the English call it Waterloo, of course. The French, Mont Saint-Jean, and the Prussians, Belle Alliance. Well, a lot of it's based on where, you were stationed and what you were trying to do. So the French were trying to take Mont Saint-Jean for most of the battle. The Prussians arrived and struck near Belle Alliance. The Brits were camped at Waterloo as their headquarters, or near Waterloo. So that's how the names change between nationalities. This probably happens in most battles, really. Gettysburg is an obvious exception, but a lot of battles had different names for the different sides. They had different ways of viewing the situation. Most of the time, we don't get all those names. Now, obviously, Bull Run and Manassas. But in general, I suspect that the winner or one side or another's name just sticks better. And especially, if you're talking the historical traditions, well, in English publications, nobody talks about the Battle of Mont Saint-Jean. Wargamers tend to do it a little bit more, and it's very understandable that a game designed by a French designer, would use that choice. Some companies that maybe are not so linked to one of the other nationalities that has a name for it, you almost feel like there's a sense of pretension to it, like, the Labatt series. I don't know if, the specific designer for it is French or not, but there's something a little funny about, no, we're too good to call it Waterloo because really it's this. Although, again, it's not unreasonable to take it from the French point of view. And then I know there's a couple of games called Belle Alliance, which, it's kind of like, my assumption was always, it's, about the Good Alliance, whatever, the anti-French coalition. No, it's for the name of the town. So I have no idea that it's going to be Waterloo because of that, because that's just such an off-the-wall name. And, enough people have covered Waterloo that putting a different name out makes sense in terms of distinguishing the games, but it is a little funky. Oh, we're forgetting somebody. Anyway, and those guys moved at full movement. There was something else I had to say, and I'm not sure how well my glasses are working. A couple of personal things. I'm not sure how well my glasses are helping here. These are really tiny numbers on here. And, by pure reading glasses, which are actually a stronger situation than what I have in these progressives. If I had them on all the time in that bottom layer, I think I'd go crazy. I can see them much better. And this was the main reason I got the glasses, because, I have some difficulty reading off the computer screen sometimes, but I can always blow that up a little bit. And then also, this is leprosy season here in Arizona. I get this tremendously dry skin where, you know, I normally don't have to moisturize or anything like that, but my feet start cracking with like half-inch deep cracks and stuff if I don't. It's just, it's hideous, and it happens. I don't know why. I you know, other people that I know who seem to have kind of, well, for example, my wife is always worried about dry skin, but she moisturizes once a day or whatever all year round. And I don't have to, so I just don't. And then, you know, it comes to this period and I'm moisturizing maybe 3-4 times a day with some really heavy industrial strength stuff, or else this hits. And it's like my skin is just exuding this huge amount of salt. Yeah, you really wanted to hear that, didn't you? The battle's about, things are about to happen. We're in transition turns, and you know, everything's kind of happening off map right now. And you know, I'm trying to figure out what my reinforcement schedules are as I build them, and that's an important thing. If I do try to take this compilation that I had originally and post it online, which I was talking to, or which I offered to do over on CSW, and nobody responded that that would even be a decent idea. Then, so I don't know. I don't know if I'll bother. Because, you know, I have mine in paper. Screw it. Typing it in, if it's not helping anybody, it's more work than it's worth. Then I have to make sure to leave out the notes that I'm putting in. I'm trying to put them in pencil. All right. Yeah. Nothing's happening, you know? Yeah, I'm really worried about this. I mean, there's so few Brits that I shouldn't be. Oh, I know what it was. So here's the thing. Writing orders for coping with a map that you can't see. So like, Napoleon should have almost no idea how the Brits are aligned here. And in fact, I don't have an idea how they're aligned, because most of the Brits haven't arrived yet. But I've had to write some pretty broad orders to try to cover this uncertainty. So my orders are really to pursue the Brits down this road. Well, I'm going to hit a roadblock there, but okay. And then on this one, to get as broad an outflank as possible. Now I've got Ney along, and I'm going to allow him to generate his own order a turn, as long as he's kind of not too close to Napoleon. If he starts getting really in conjunction with Napoleon, if we end up with an outflank that's hitting right, you know, just this crescent here, then I'm probably going to subordinate Ney, and I don't know what he becomes. Basically a more potent aide-de-camp, maybe. I just really don't know what to do with him. And I can use him as a replacement corps commander, I guess, because I don't think that would be a problem. Ney, historically, he did have a significant role at Waterloo. I think primarily in charge of the cavalry, although there may have been other things that were put under him as an ad hoc command. Now, given that Grouchy is over at Wavre, it would make sense. I don't know if I have enough cav to just assign him to that position. I have Kellerman's cav. I'm going to give him, I'm going to continue using him as I'm planning here. I couldn't find any rules for him in the Waterloo, but I didn't look too hard. He is in the scenario where the cav makes its fatal charge, or charges. So I suspect he might be in command of an ad hoc corps of cav units, or just sort of attached to them as someone I can give orders to. And that's essentially what I'm doing. He's going to be the focus of a small conglomerate of Retour and Kellerman. Anyway, I think I ought to just call him Real, because if I but it's definitely not that. But anyway, if I decide that, you know, I want to give him some other special purpose in the midst of the battle, I'll do that via orders. End of 7 a.m. turn, and forgot this bugger. You can see, wow, these transition glasses are really weird because, like, if I move quickly, it's like the whole world kind of goes whoosh, as though I'm like watching waves or something going through the reality. It's really weird. Anyway, just my brain processing what it sees, like if you look through a glass of water or whatever. We're almost entirely off the map over here on the LiGNi map, and I'm going to break the tables down when I figure out what to do with these guys. I'll probably keep one as an auxiliary table. Over here, this is a little trickier because we've got things just beginning to move, but it'll be a couple more turns and they'll be out of the way as well, and then I can be back to a reasonable footprint. If for some reason I'm going back to LiGNi and Quatre Bras, probably the French have lost badly in that case, or something like that, and it's going to be very, very unlikely. And if it is, worst comes to worst, I can build my tables back up, or I can set it up on the floor temporarily until we figure out what's going on. Anyway, over here, nothing really too exciting happening. The Brits beginning to set up their own defense against what's going on. Very few troops here, which is going to be problematic because the French are heading out that way. The British are probably aware of that outflank going on. I mean, certainly the player is, right? One thing I had to consider was the movement rates, say between Quatre Bras and Waterloo. That's 1 hour for cav, 2 hour for infantry. Well, my cav was by rear guard, and so they're the last thing that trickled in, and I'm just saying they're going to take 2 hours just like the infantry does, because they got something in front of them in their way. They can't just zoom along, and road movement, you know, conceivably they could pass by a small force of Brits, but Wellington's Corps and Orange's Corps are both stacked up in front of them. That's a lot of troops. You know, it's probably not going to save me much time to slip around them. Maybe I'd save the hour. I doubt it. You know, if it only takes an hour on the road, if the road's blocked, it's not going to take only an hour to cross. So maybe it should be an hour and a half instead of 2 hours. It's not worth worrying about, but I am putting the reasonableness clause in there and saying, hey, we're not going to just allow you to run across. I do not know where the Wavre to Quatre Bras. See, this is weird. So, if you come in over here, I'm just not sure where you end up in proportion. So, if LiGNi, which is over there, takes you off the corner, it brings you to what looks like should be over here, I think, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. All right, so what we're seeing from the corner as we go over there, if we come from the south edge, we're going to hit here. So Wavre is actually kind of in the middle here. It's the way I have it set up is wrong just because of the physical layout of the table and my own thinking. So Wavre is more in the midst here, right here. So yeah, this road will bring me in here, I guess. The southern entries will come down here. Nothing's going to come in off there. If I want to go from Wavre, I'll be following the to Brussels road here. And where does that take me? That'll take me up to here. Wow. Well, that's going to be a big danger if the French can come in from that direction. Well, better hope that von Bülow does his job, right, and holds off half the French army. The end of 730, and I remember to move him here. French are showing up on the WAV map. This is showing some serious problems because 4th Corps is coming in from here. Okay, great, you know, we'll have an engagement or something, maybe. But French troops leaving this road are also coming in on this road. A little later, we're looking at like, the Prussians start at 8, and that runs until noon. The French start coming in at 11, and we're just going to be deploying, you know, both sides coming in on that same road. That's going to be chaotic, and you know, you wish you had a little bit more map to play this out, whatever it is. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think they're going to come in kind of, you know, deploying and struggling right away. There's no rules to handle that, of course, and I'm not quite sure what to do. But this is clearly, there's no rules that state this, but this is clearly where the Prussians are coming from. They're coming from Namur, and that is also, according to the rules, what this road goes to. Think of this, again, this map as being sort of more southward from Ligny rather than off to the side where I have it. They have it kind of showing what's going on. It's actually would be adjacent to the Waterloo map, and these should both be shifted over. My setup in the room isn't capable of putting the maps exactly where they should be. For the English, we have more of Wellington's forces coming on, and here's where the problem comes from their point of view. I gotta send somebody off to protect where troops might be coming in from WAV, and that because there could well be French troops coming from there, and I'm not sure this forward line makes sense, but I want to start with this forward line. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to defend over here with Wellington, and then I'll peel Orange off as need be. Since I see that there are French troops, and I assume I have some scouts and everything who notice this, who knows when it'll come, via the Nivelle Road, which pushes me over here, I'm going to be aware that there are French coming from that direction. But I've got a problem, because the Anglo-Dutch army consists of 3 corps. Well, when does Hill come in? Hill comes in at 11 over here. Fresh troops. So then the question becomes, do I pull Orange out? And, you know, the French coming from here are going to take a long time. So, or is it better to just leave Orange here and send Hill directly over and hope that the French don't cut across to Wavre, through Wavre very easily? We don't know. We really don't know how this is going to pan out. But, yeah, it's kind of exciting to watch it unfold because there's a lot of chaos going on. Morning turn, and we still have this one butthead wandering around on the Ligny map, which means I can't take it apart. I could take one table out, but whatever. Over here, Cadabra, we have Napoleon's main force heading, following the Brits. That's going to be an ugly situation where they're, you know, deploying in front of the guns and don't have room down here to do anything now. I'll let them, you know, come on in line formation or something, but at least it's not as horrible as the other scenario where it was right on the edge where they came in and the Allied forces were like deployed right on that edge too. We might see that over on the WAV map though. Most of Rael and Napoleon, he doesn't, he's a little horsey. He shouldn't be heading this way. I hope I didn't send him off with Ney. All right. Well, we'll track down where Napoleon got lost. But he seems to have lost his honor guard there, and I don't think he's kicking around here. He may have gotten swept along with something. For the Allies, more troops coming on. Hey, I found the Congreves. For whatever good they can do. We got more artillery building up here, Uxbridge's Cav in the center. We do have to worry over on the WAV map about when the French are coming through. But von Bülow is already streaming in with his Cav. His troops are going to take a long time coming in. And I'm going to play Grouchy somewhat poorly, to say the least. The problem is that the scenarios for WAV assume either the historical situation or various different choices that Grouchy could have made. He right now doesn't have any orders except to get to WAV, and once he gets there, I'm going to have him start to make some decisions where he's like, you know, rolling a die to see, hey, do you want to, you going to deal with Waterloo or not, you know? Or are you more worried about these Prussians here? How worried are you about stopping this remnant, you know, of one corps of the Prussian army? And how much are you interested in committing? You know, he's got 3 infantry corps and 3 Cav divisions under his command. So he could certainly handle this corps, especially if he gets a defensive position. Some of the bridges were destroyed. I think the Allies did that during their retreat. I'm not positive of that. And that being the case, I'm just going to play that all the bridges are still standing. There may have been some other reason that they were destroyed, but it's just too much of a pain in the ass to worry about, especially when I suspect that they're not the issue. Hey, look, it's the moon. All right, well, probably, I don't know, might be getting another turn in today, I don't know. 9 a.m., cleaned up a couple of tables here. British position, getting a little bit thicker, a little bit more believable that it might be able to withstand the French attack for at least a while. French are still working their way off Quatre Bras. Most of the units are off board here. Still some Brits, not many, coming in. They don't have much more of a line here. And then I have Hill, who I think I have to devote over to defend against the WAV contingent, which is over here. Here's the reinforcements coming in. Now von Bülow's troops come in one unit every hour, one division essentially per hour. The Cav opening things up. The Cav have slid down, challenging Grouchy, who's also moved forward. D'Erlon is pushing his own position forward. Let's see what our map tells us. You can see I'm eating up a lot of map space with charts and tables. I will have the Quatre Bras map clear very soon, so there'll be a lot of room on here, and I'll probably use this as my auxiliary table instead of breaking it down right away. Eventually the WAV table will also be cleared, I assume. And what was I going to look at? Yeah, so the move between WAV and Waterloo looks like it comes off here. This is the exit, and it comes on up in the north there. So, you know, there's a big separation now. If I use the space in here near where the battle was more historically fought, I could keep my my interior lines a little bit tighter, but I would rather give myself some room to fall back because I have the feeling I'm going to need to do that. This is going to be a defeat for the Alliance pretty much no matter what. The question is, you know, how painful can they make it on the French? So far, they've not done a very good job of that. Alrighty, 9 o'clock turn, more of the English are coming in. I think Wellington's entire army is on the board now. So, well, He's just waiting for Hill and these units, which I don't remember where they're from and why they're there. We got Hill here. Maybe that's follow-up units of Hill's Corps. Doesn't look like it. I'm gonna have to figure out why I have these here and where they came from. I don't remember. Anyway, and the French are trickling off. We're almost done with Cutterbra's map. Over here, though, things are interesting. So, VlE doesn't have the traditional or historical role that Blucher's remains of an army had. He's finding himself being beaten to the punch to Wavre, actually. And he's not going to be able to delay an advance to Brussels necessarily. So what I'm looking at more is, can I get, or the route to Waterloo, can I get to the Waterloo map at all before the French, you know, or can I position myself so the French can't get onto that road or whatever? But the problem that I have is, all I have here is my cav, and now some infantry are starting to come on, and eventually there's gonna be a fight out here, which is just gonna be crazy, but because it probably should have happened off map. But what's going on is he's decided to start charging, and of course Grouchy countercharges with his big stack. So this is going to wind up into a cav battle, but the question is, can the Prussian cav, which is going to have to come in piecemeal against this stack, beat it? Well, Grouchy's not exactly, yeah, he's okay. I thought he was more fatigued than that. And yeah, he took a rest turn, that's why. Grouchy's force, though, isn't absolutely intact. It does have some losses. So this may not be, and it's also all light cav up here because this is Pujol. Extremas has the heavier stuff, and then Milhaud, I think, does as well. Yeah, he's got the heavies. So it's not exactly the cream of the cav here, but it is a lot of units, even if it's not a whole hell of a lot of strength, because there can only be 7 strength points in there, or stacking points, and there's 6 in here of heavier cav. So I'm giving it to the Prussians, but we'll see. And the net effect is, indeed, the Prussians were able to, with the second cav charge, the first one was kind of a push, bounce Grouchy away. This guy wasn't able to really take advantage of it, and I don't know. Yeah, I didn't want to hit him, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that leaves me a potential for a charge, but it's a much weaker unit. We got the infantry beginning to push on. This is the 9 a.m. turn. I wasn't about to count to see from back at the beginning whether this is what number turn this is. So I just declared 9 a.m. to be turn 1 because I don't have any other number markers on the board, so it might as well be. And we're probably going to see a continuous string of turns with, you know, conflict happening for a bit. Maybe not markers showing up every turn, just because there aren't a lot of troops here on the board right now. Fairly soon things are going to get pretty wild and woolly over here. An awesome question come about something I don't think I considered at all, which has to do with the base game and, by extension, the modifiers that I'm using from the options. Treatment of villages. Why are they so hard to crack? Why is morale so good in them? Obviously, there are certain defensive advantages to, you know, the stone buildings, even wooden buildings, in terms of you can see that affecting fire. And it's handled in both directions, right? The attacker gets a 2-shift penalty against their fire. The defender of the village only gets to fire out with 1 fire point. And you can't put artillery there, etc. First of all, one thing is to realize what the villages kind of look like. A lot of stone buildings in these things, very, very tightly populated, because the farming is outside the village confines. So you have not a lot of space. So the units are going to be breaking down into very, very loose formations, skirmishers, whatever, and, you know, fighting with what cover they have. Now, you have something similar going on, though, in the woods, where, and obviously, you know, something like these walled farms and stuff are even stronger positions because they allow you. I think they actually don't handle things terribly well, because those aren't going to be as dense a build-up. So you might actually be able to fire out of them, you know, put a lot of people along the wall and shoot out. If you've played SPI's Monmouth, you can see the effects of like what a good wall or hedgerow can do for you in this era. But in terms of the woods have a very similar, hey, the units are broken up into small formations, skirmishing, probably taking cover where they can. There's a difference, though, which has to do with sort of how ubiquitous the defensive positions are. In a village, there are good fire line positions that are fairly rare, but also more solid, built of stone perhaps, or whatever, where you can cower behind and hold your position. And the idea of leaving that village, that defensive terrain, is very, very difficult. Whereas, you know, if you're looking at a woods like this, you can always fall back. So routing becomes an easier thing to do, or disordering and falling back. There's going to be safe places to hide and cower further back. There's not necessarily coming from the village. So there's an abstraction level there, obviously, but I think overall that works fairly nicely. And then I started thinking about, you know, in terms of eras, and maybe somebody can help me out on this. I know that if you go back to the age of Marlborough, you have this kind of using villages as defensive points, as anchors for your defenses. And you certainly have it in the Napoleonic era. I'm not so sure in the intervening period, say Frederick's period, where obviously you still use the village as an anchor, and maybe you scatter some troops through it. You know, you have some Jaegers or something to put in there. But in terms of whole formations clustering into the villages, and even in Napoleonic, you don't have what was happening in Marlborough. The age of Marlborough is really weird in terms of this, where villages, the immobile position in the villages was taken as a defensive bonus, but it's kind of a mixed defensive bonus, because artillery is actually more effective against things like that, which isn't handled in this very well. But they actually would cram so many guys into it, because you would never be able to push them out, was kind of the thinking there. And I don't think you have quite that same kind of, let's get a lot of density so you can't push them out at this period. It's more based on the firepower. Even though the weapons are fairly similar, some of the tactics, the rate of fire has been increased, for example, and stuff like that. A lot of the drilling that happened in the mid-century era, I think, comes into play in terms of not wanting to have that huge density. Anyway, that's my thinking on it. Maybe I'm a little mistaken, because I'm not as comfortable, sadly, with the mid-18th century tactics as I am with either the Napoleonic or the later. And I'm not an expert in anything, obviously, you know. Sometimes people complain, oh, he sounds like a professor trying to, yeah. Well, you know, I can't help how I sound, but I feel like I try to qualify everything with my own lack of knowledge about things as much as I can. And, you know, that's me. It got me, now that last little bit got me thinking, you know, I think what it is that people probably are comparing the college professor who comes in, has an idea of what he's talking about, has some concepts behind the whole situation, but isn't necessarily coming in there with the prepackaged motivational speech that a lot of people are used to because they go to these business meetings where they're really given nothing, but they're given a nothing that looks real pretty, lots of PowerPoints and, not a lot of discussion or thought about what is being said. That may have been done previously in the packaging side of things, as opposed to this sort of, hey, here's what I'm thinking, which is indeed, how modern classrooms end up being handled since, the 60s or whatever. I think you had a different style prior to that, where you're not so much, where the professor is essentially trying to reach to express what they know and what they want to say and whatever it is, but it's not just a rote, and it's not just a selling points, and it's not, designed to make things as easy as possible to get the few key points that you want it to get through to people. It's more there to encourage a discussion and to keep, to bring the audience in so that they're actually active in it instead of being fed something in a certain way. I don't know. Anyway, this is how I am. This is how I conduct things. I'm the guy holding the camera like the person behind the podium would be, at the other things. And there are lots of options out there. Okay, well, Cotterbrow's gone if I hadn't mentioned that already. I think I hadn't. Most of the English on here already. I figured out who these guys are. They're the guys who ran around the side, and I've included their times of entry here. Don't think I recorded it anywhere useful, at least. Maybe it's on here or something, I don't know. But Brits continuing to throw their force together. Orange's command is kind of weird here. It's stretched out beyond the range that the commander can reach, I think. See if I can tilt my eyes so I can see where it starts. Starts here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So actually, theoretically, I can be here, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can almost get it all in command. My feeling here is simply, look, there are times when command radius has to be bent in this game because you're expanded to defend too much of a space, whatever. There are ways that games like CWB handle this. I think it's easiest just to say, screw it, every now and then you got to bend the rules a little bit to cover situations that you believe will happen. And I feel a lot more comfortable in this game than in a lot of games in doing so, because so much of it is fiddle, twist things and tinker with them to your own delight, as it were. Over here, no new troops coming on. Is that right? Yeah, because the problem is that, so one weird thing happened, which is somehow Miloud got sent with Grouchy. I'm not sure that was supposed to happen. I know when it happened as I was leaving the Ligny map, but I'm not really sure that he was supposed to follow this. He was attached to Van Damme before. I'm not sure if there's a Cav unit with Van Damme working with him. I hope none of Miloud is with him. If they are, hey, they attach temporarily, whatever, and we'll leave them in that command and worry about it as it happens. But yeah, nothing new came in here. No, Prussians are coming in 1 per hour, but you can see they're pushing up against the French, who've taken a position in Wavre itself. Grouchy got knocked back by the light cav here because he was already disordered. Wow, he's routed now. It was an easy attack. And we got some artillery up here on the hill defending the main roadway. We got a problem with the Prussians here, though. They've got to make a decision. They can either come down to Boswov or try to attack WoW directly across bridges, which does not sound like it's a valid option. As of right now, probably what they're going to do is just park, and von Bülow is going to have to write himself orders if he's going to go around there. On the other hand, Grouchy has no orders either, and Derlone is just kind of piling in here. His orders were to pursue the enemy. Well, there is no enemy anymore, so presumably he should have stopped before he crossed the map boundary. But my intention was, with the Grouchy orders, that he would be a part of Grouchy's command. Right now, though, Grouchy's running away, and we're not going to be seeing any orders from him probably for a while. So what we're probably going to see is some ability of the Prussians to try to get around here. We'll see. I don't want to restrict Grouchy too much on the tactical level once he knows what he's doing. And I don't feel like he's willing to allow the Prussians to get through to Waterloo. I think he's willing to oppose that. The only question is he willing to try to charge to get to Waterloo before the Prussians do? And I think the answer to that is probably not. I rolled a die last turn to see if he would. He didn't. And then, or actually this turn. And I may do that every turn to see if he sees an opportunity to slip through here. Maybe he'll take it. Otherwise, he's probably still going to try to position himself here, even without making some sort of, quasi-initiative roll for this. Damn turn, things are starting. Hill's coming on board. Now, the way I'm going to handle Hill is a little weird. I think he takes command of the army. I think he outranks Uxbridge here. These things aren't terribly well covered, I think, in the rolls, but that's fine. As to who takes over what, but you can look it up online if you're really curious. I think Hill would be taking command. Generally, a large infantry formation like this, you wouldn't see a cav commander taking charge. It's kind of strange. You have Blucher, a former cav commander, and Grouchy, a cav marshal, who are given, the main effects in at least the WoW section of the board. But leave that alone, because, in general, I think the rule would be that the infantry commander takes over, especially in the British Army. He's going to be the commander-in-chief. Whether or not... He's got two choices. Basically, he can remain in command of his unit as commander-in-chief of the army, in which case I'm going to be kind of on an unpleasant position where I send him over here, and that's not where I want him. So I'm probably going to dispatch an underling to him and let him serve just as army commander. Again, this kind of stuff's not really handled in the rules. That would be the default situation, but Wellington commanded his own corps level unit as well as the army. So I want to give that option to Hill as well. I've been leaving Uxbridge in that position. An alternative would be to leave Uxbridge in command, I guess, but that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Now, I do want some cav over here. I'm thinking I want the majority of the cav up facing the WoW side of things, because that's where I'm really worried about big cav actions going on. But I may be breaking Uxbridge's cav up and attaching a section over here, maybe a section over here, and then a section up there. In which case, maybe it makes sense to leave Uxbridge as the commander-in-chief. But I'm pretty sure that Hill outranks him. I'll look it up to make sure, because if Uxbridge does outrank Hill, I'm probably going to dispatch contingents of the cavalry to handle the different sides of the English line of battle. I'm not sure how Waterloo handles it. Probably actually has something similar to that set up for the Waterloo battle. I just haven't bothered to look it up. Over here, we have more of Bülow coming in. Now, what's interesting about Bülow is he's alone on this field. He's got a one-core defense. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't really need to write orders. And that's largely what I'm doing. How much... Hey, it saves me some effort, you know? But seriously, I think that he's in a pretty flexible position where he doesn't have to deal with subordinates and such not. The only thing he has to worry about is the one-turn delay or whatever, and I'll fudge it where I want it, you know?